let's say Trey Lance isn't there, or the Niners don't like Trey Lance, and however it breaks, they don't take a quarterback in round one. They just feel like maybe there's some best player available, or there's some need they got to address. So if that happens, where do you think they go in round one if it's not a quarterback?
Well, as I mentioned, if they don't go quarterback, I think it's going to be J.C. Horn, most likely out of South Carolina. I was playing around with the draft simulators yesterday, and that just continually kept popping up for them. Regardless of which one I was on, he kept falling to that 12 range, and the quarterback situation was always hit or miss. So that would be a guy that I'd say there. The other one that kept falling was, and this one might be a little, folks might be surprised, is the tight end Kyle Pitts. He kept falling down there too as well. So I could see a situation where if Pitts is there at 12, the 49ers take him and grab an offensive weapon.
I would love corner, but I'm also not going to rule out defensive lineman because that's what they've done. They've been consistent, other than being poaching injury players from free agency. That's pretty much been the most consistent part about the 49ers offseason additions, right? It's injuries or just defensive linemen, but I think it's going to – I would love J.C. Horn. Ever since like 2-3 weeks ago when one of my old coaches said, like, check this guy out, I want him. And I looked at him a little bit, and I saw Eric Crocker give his okay. I was like, all right, you know what? It's already sold. I've only seen like 3 or 4 corners right now, but I would – that's my dream scenario. But more times than not, my dreams get crushed. So it's probably just going to be like a defensive lineman at that point, just because that's the way Kyle likes to build within. I think they're right now actually perfectly fine at defensive line, other than if they want to poach another free agency grab. I think they're fine at there. I think it's time to finally find that cornerstone at corner, because they have one in Nick Bosa defensive line. They have one in Fred Warner linebacker. Give one to the corner/secondary position for once and for all.
Okay, I'm going to go out of left field with this one. I think cornerback is definitely reasonable, but I mean, they're paying $5 million to Jason Verrett this year. Emmanuel Mosley's getting a starter contract. It'd be a little awkward to have Mosley just go to the bench and start a rookie.
He's been there before.
Or it'd be a little awkward to have your 12th pick just sit on the bench behind Emmanuel Mosley. I think the more natural spot to take a corner is round 2. Round 1, I think you want to take a guy at a position where there's not a lot of money being spent. Where is that position? To me, it's not running back. It's not – I mean, you could take an offensive tackle and ship out McGlinchey, but it's possible Slater will be a top 5. It seems like Slater and Sewell are going to go high. I'm thinking there's a scenario where a wide receiver drops. Smith, Chase, Waddle, and the Niners take them. And they do it because I think they're not necessarily as high on Debo as we think they are. Because last year was botched in a lot of ways, but his absence, I think, was as big and as painful for the team as anyone's. And it was a lot like self-inflicted. He may have, he hurt himself and then he kept re-injuring himself, pulling hamstrings. It didn't look like he was particularly in shape. I think they wonder about his professionalism, his maturity. So I wouldn't be surprised if Devontae Smith is there and they're just like, oh, well, wow. I mean, he's the best player available. Because they're not spending any money on wide receivers right now. Bourne left.
Yeah.
Debo's unreliable. Brandon Ayuk's all you got, really. I mean, I'm not saying they will, but I think it's in play. Yeah, am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. Debo, they do love to use, the 3 wide receiver set. So, without Bourne, I know they doesn't care about Richie James as much, even though I think he's capable of doing so. But I think for sure that I don't see that as being like a very high likelihood. I think that's kind of a slim chance. But you know what? I'm not going to rule it out. That your reasoning sounds great. And I think that's something they would love to use, because eventually, maybe use Debo Samuel as trade bait in a year or two, if not maybe even the same year. Who knows? But yeah, if you take one of those players, I think he would have a blast with them. I just think now it's like, all right, well, once again, we got a guy that's going to deliver it to these players, and it's going to also be the same thing. What if we're running out backups and you can't really eventually keep building on these guys' development to make them that player that you project them to be?
Yeah, because they are a 21 personnel team, but the number 3 receiver plays more than Kyle Juszczyk. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That just opens things up too.
And Kyle loves drafting wide receivers. You can't discount that fact. It is a fact. It's like gravity.